Can't go in the mall?
No.
Wait, what's it because of the? It's because of the event, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Having security guards is not stopping nothing, nigga. We still got in. We in this bitch. No, they on hot. They watching us. Oh my. Nah, why they close every store in this? Oh, nah, they wild back up the horses and. Oh.
So that was footage from a TikTok account documenting from the teen's perspective an attempted takeover that was set to go down at Green Acres Mall in Long Island, New York, in the area of Valley Stream. Now, for those of you who are unaware, for those of you who don't know, I actually used to work at Green Acres Mall when I was 19 years old. I had to commute an hour and 15 minutes in order to get to Green Acres Mall to sell remote control helicopters, and it's that time that I spent in that particular neighborhood where I developed my deep love and affection for the black people here on Black History Month, because in reality, the demographics of Green Acres Mall are black people and Indian people, and guess what? Indian people do not buy remote control helicopters. Black people, and specifically black dads, do. So here on the Actual Justice Warrior channel, dating back to me being 19 years old, I love the black people. That being said, there were a number of instances where people wanted to kill me because they broke the helicopter and I wouldn't take a refund. And those notable exceptions to what I just said are absolutely 100% there. But more crucially for you guys to understand is that this is not a New York City mall takeover like what we saw in the Bronx at the Baychester Mall earlier this week. This happened in Long Island, and unlike New York City, Nassau County and Suffolk County, the two counties in Long Island, actually have Republican governance, a tough on crime district attorney.
Nah, they just bored at the point. They just doing shit.
So unlike what went down in the Bronx earlier this week, the police came out in force, and you can actually see that reflected in this particular TikTok video where this guy's like, we're not going to be stopped by this. And then he gets into the mall, realizes that the mall was prepared for this. A bunch of the stores were shut down because they were expecting looters and rioters, because they were aware of what was organized on social media. And then the Nassau County Police come out in force and start making arrests.
Nassau police rushing to the scene for reports of a large group of teenagers at the Green Acres Mall in Valley Stream. It's the latest so-called mall takeover organized by young people through social media posts. The large group disrupting business and creating chaos.
Yeah, you absolutely love to see that, and to see these smug teenagers who only want to destroy come out and act like they're not going to be stopped in their riot at this particular mall, only to find out that they will be stopped, that this ain't the Bronx, that this isn't an area covered by a woke district attorney that lives and exists under a mayor like Zohran Mamdani. This is in fact an area where people actually crack down on criminality, is absolutely wonderful. It's splendid, if you will, and it's nice to see these teens, these youths, running and hanging their heads in shame as they try to commit these crimes. And this is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to compare and contrast this takeover to what went down in the Bronx. But before we get into that, I want to thank all of you for getting me to 500,000 subscribers. Now, you guys know I started this YouTube channel nearly 10 years ago. I always say the hardest thing that I ever had to do was to go from 0 to 1,000 subscribers on this platform. But over the years, you guys have consistently supported me, and I never thought I would make it to 100,000 subscribers, let alone 200,000, let alone 500K where I am at this moment in time. So I really genuinely appreciate it. You guys have allowed me to live a wonderful life. I was able to marry the girl that I fell in love with back in university, pay for a wonderful wedding, hopefully start a family at some point in time in the near future, and eventually possibly move out of this apartment to maybe a house or at least a better apartment. Although look at the amazingness of this totally real brick wall that I got right here. So seriously, from me to you, I do appreciate everything that you guys have allowed me to do. And yeah, we're just going to keep going. We're going to keep powering through. But this is basically the last milestone. I'm probably never going to make it to 1 million. So again, thank you guys so much. And thank you to the people who support this channel over on actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?
We got locked in Akira for like 2 hours.
because we couldn't do anything because they said it was a chaos. There was a riot going outside. It's scary because you don't know what's going on the outside. I don't know what's going on with my car. I don't know what's going in.
So we hear from this woman that was actually trapped in the mall during the teen takeover because what the Nassau County Police and the mall security essentially did, and by the way, they actually have a police station that is connected to this mall, if you guys are unaware, is basically close all the doors, barricade off the entrance and exits in order to clear out the teens that were gathering in order to do violence and destruction. And again, this gathering was promoted on social media. In fact, the local Pix 11 affiliate actually has a copy of the flyer that said that all the teens, all the youths were supposed to gather around here at 3 p.m., cause all manner of chaos, and they were only going to leave when they were forced out. So the Nassau County Police, unlike the NYPD, who are great people at the NYPD, but again, they're controlled by Mayor Mamdani right now, and of course, the Bronx District Attorney wouldn't prosecute anyone that they arrested, decided that they were going to come out in force and make sure that this thing stopped before it ever got started. However, you could see the mob of teens, these violent individuals looking to tear up this particular mall, this mall that's within their own community. Again, as somebody who worked there, the demographics of this mall are overwhelmingly 85% black in terms of the shoppers and maybe 15% Indian as the remainder. And these people were going to rip this whole thing up, have a good time while doing it, but the Nassau police ended up cracking down immediately. They surged to this particular incident and they were able to fight off these hordes and make multiple arrests. They're reporting that it's 9 right now, and I would charge each of these 9 individuals with false imprisonment of the people who are trapped in the mall, because this is exactly what they did. Imagine somebody had a medical emergency or just a medical appointment. They couldn't get out of the mall. They needed to go pick up their kid or something like that, but they weren't able to do so because of this teen mob that was looking to destroy. And again, this is a stark contrast to what we saw in Baychester at their mall in the Bronx, which by the way is actually by one of my groomsmen, or where he used to live when he lived in the Bronx, where he grew up. And yeah, it's disturbing for me to see areas that I've traveled to, shopped at, or at least worked at in terms of Green Acres Mall be threatened or possibly destroyed by these youths, because guess what? They feel entitled and they are not being punished for the crimes that they commit. This is again one of the consequences of statewide legislation in the criminal justice arena called Raise the Age, which makes it damn near impossible to hold youths accountable statewide for the crimes that they commit. Although if there is a will, Nassau County's prosecutor will find a way in order to punish these individuals.
That is crazy. There are all these kids running up and down all over the place.
We saw several young people, some wearing backpacks, being taken into custody. Mounted police combed the parking lot as the mall shut down.
Now we could see the response from police from the other local news segment. Obviously, they're blocking off all the doors. We saw from the TikTok video that they had shut down stores inside. And of course, they interview more people who are either trapped in the mall or trapped outside the mall that were worried about these teens just wanting to tear up the place. But of course, the police showed up in force. They came in horseback. They came with cars. They were ready to do battle with these youths, with these teenagers. And again, you could just see the obvious by all the various different bits of footage that this is overwhelmingly 90+% black teens engaged in this violence, engaged in this form of terror that they're inflicting on the city and the state of New York. And yes, this is a consequence of this piss poor behavior being tolerated.
Teens smashed glass at a deli on Baychester Avenue in Baychester. Police say it was one of the chaotic moments that erupted in and around Bay Plaza Mall Monday afternoon.
They tried to break in. We closed the door and we tried to avoid that and we tried to call 911.
Police say they believe the same large group of teenagers broke a window at a McDonald's across the street. In total, 18 people were arrested. On Tuesday, social media rumors prompted a heightened Yonkers police presence at the Cross County Mall just north at Ridge Hill. Police may not be immediately present, but the cameras are watching.
Now, as you can see right there, this is the footage from the Baychester incident that happened in the Bronx. This was able to escalate to a far more out-of-hand position where they started breaking windows, and this is obviously part of their plan to loot all these different various stores, terrorize these communities, which again are disproportionately black communities, so they're destroying their own areas in order to have fun, because these kids care about nothing except their own personal satisfaction, and they they like to destroy. And of course, we hear about other instances of this popping off in and around the state of New York. However, if you notice, every time they seem to identify a location that is not within the confines of the city of New York, like the Yonkers Mall, you end up with an accelerated police presence, and essentially they try to cut this down before it actually comes to fruition. But in New York City, despite the fact that the NYPD, of course, does a good job, makes 18 arrests in a more chaotic scenario, you can expect the district attorney over there, who, by the way, prosecutes fewer people as a percentage of arrests than Alvin Bragg in Manhattan, to let these kids go, give them a slap on the wrist, and maybe, just maybe, give them a payout because they were just mostly peacefully protesting that McDonald's and that deli at the Baychester Mall Plaza. But again, this is exactly what happens when you allow this criminality to go unchecked for so long, and when youths don't understand that the same rules that apply in New York City, which is essentially no rules, the criminals run the show, don't actually apply statewide in other areas with more competent leadership. Because as you see, this particular riot didn't get out of hand at Green Acres Mall in the same way that it did in the Bronx, and in Yonkers, it was stopped cold in its tracks because they caught wind of it, because they're monitoring these kind of situations. Now, of course, people are watching the surveillance cameras at all these different locations. All these malls are on red alert because they know if they see a mob of black youths, and yes, they are overwhelmingly black youths, develop in and around their location, then the thing's gonna go down. We all understand what's happening here. We all understand who's behind it, despite the fact that the local news media is blurring the footage so you can't see it, even when it's not violent. And of course, trying to obfuscate that reality that these are black teens tearing up black neighborhoods for fun. And it's absolutely shameful because, again, the regular ordinary people there that ended up getting trapped in these particular stores are in fact black as well. They're people who are just trying to go about their day, do their basic shopping in the stores that are available to them. But these very teens committing this crime over and over again are what drives businesses out of these areas. Like, we should not be surprised if in the future we hear about Baychester becoming a food desert, the grocery stores closing up, and then you have black civil rights leaders going on television talking about how this is the result of evil white racism, even though none of them will speak up against this. None of them will identify the problems within their own community, and none of them will call for more accountability for the youths, for the teens that are committing this violence over and over again.
And some say this behavior begins at home.
Parents need to really start taking more steps to know what their kids are up to.
Yeah, look, it's absolutely true that this is on the parent, or more accurately, the parent, the single mother, that allows this kind of behavior to proliferate among their children. But yeah, it's just shameful in every possible way. And of course, there are people, although this actually comes from a parody account that I find it funny, that like to blame poverty or all these other circumstances for this behavior. So I want to read you this parody tweet that had me cracking up, and then tell you the reality about growing up in New York City. New York City teens are subway surfing, climbing bridges, storming walls. At what point do we note that the teens have very little to do in the city that makes life extremely expensive to do anything? I want to be 100% clear, while this account is a parody, and in fact, so much so that I had to redact part of the name of this Twitter account, this sentiment right here that is being expressed about how the city is too expensive and what are these youths going to do, you know, the arrest poverty kind of sentiment, is actually not something that needs to be parodied. This is what Brandon Johnson, the mayor of the city of Chicago, was saying in response to these youth mobs, to these teens that you definitely shouldn't call members of the mob, because he thinks that's a mafia association rather than talking about their mob mentality, actually just don't have enough free stuff to do, and what we need is more midnight basketball and all sorts of absurd programs. So again, even though this is a parody, the fact is, we have seen this take be proposed legitimately in order to excuse black youth crime. And I just want to point out for you guys out there in the audience that as somebody who grew up in New York City, as somebody who was not wealthy when I grew up in New York City, there are plenty of things to do. There's parks where you could play basketball, play handball. I spent hours and hours of my days after school doing this kind of thing, and these teens could do this, but they're making the choice to destroy because they prefer the destruction. So yeah, This is ridiculous. It's obviously a parody in this particular tweet that I highlighted, but again, it's actually public policy when you turn to actual Democrats and ask them what the solution to this problem actually is, because they never want to identify the real solution, which is locking these youths up. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I want to know your thoughts down in the comments below. As per usual, if you like this video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social medias, support me via support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the absolute madness in New York and New York City. Till next time.